Welcome back to Against the Cage, your MMA home for all the biggest recaps, previews, and exclusive interviews in MMA. My name is Jake Arieh. I'm joined here by Eric Richter. Our co-host Scott Fontana is again out this week enjoying time with his family, but he will be back next week, so stay tuned for that. But let's start off by recapping what went down this past weekend in the Octagon. Reinier De Ridder defeats Robert Whittaker via split decision over the course of 5 rounds. And Eric, I got to ask you, what did you think about RDR's performance? Do you think he's cemented himself as a viable contender at middleweight?
The middleweight title picture is a little bit clouded right now, I would say. In terms of his performance specifically, I think that Robert Whittaker looked a little, well, small. He looked little, compared to Reinier
Reinier's
De
a
Ridder.
big guy.
Huge guy, 6'4". So, like, one thing that I meant to mention last week that I didn't was that De Ridder was fighting at, light heavyweight at one championship because one championship tests your hydration levels,
Yeah.
so you can't cut weight the same way as you do in the UFC. So that's a big piece, is that he's able to get down to 185 now, where most people would not be able to get down to 185 at 6'4". De Ridder, it must have conditioned his body in a way that he can cut more weight than most people. So he's going to be a weight bully at this weight class, pretty much going forward. Now, is he in the middleweight title picture? It's tough to say because if Hamzat Chimaev wins, I think that stylistically is an interesting matchup because they're both good grapplers, and he's not the best striker as we saw. I thought De Ridder's striking still needs work, and I think Hamzat is an interesting matchup because the way it stylistically matches up. But against most strikers, he's going to have a really tough time. Anyone that can stop his takedowns, and it's not like he's a wrestling savant like Hamzat is, he's going to have a tough time. So any big time striker is going to give him issues at middleweight for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned that middleweight is a little bit clouded. We do have Caio Borralho taking on Nassourdine Imavov in Paris, I believe. Given that Nassourdine is French, so I think that is really kind of the thing that might be holding him back from getting an immediate title shot. Versus the winner of Hamzat and DDP, but I still could see it. I don't know. It wouldn't be the craziest thing that we've seen from the UFC brass if RDR gets that title shot, right? What do you think?
I mean, at short notice replacement, anything's possible. I mean, we saw Renato Moicano fight Islam Makhachev. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, that should have never happened. So, you know, if you were to look at it, the way that I look at it is like, would you be a favorite or an underdog? He'd probably be favored against Israel Adesanya at this point in his career, but he'd probably be an underdog to Sean Strickland, who's got good takedown defense and really crisp boxing. So, that's tough, right? So Israel Adesanya's 4 and Sean Strickland's 2. He's going to be an underdog to Strickland most likely, and then Imavov. I I I think that would be a good fight for him if they didn't book his opponent against Kyle Barhalo. I would say that that would have been a good matchup. But unfortunately for De Ridder here, is he should just go back into the lab, get really work on that striking. Like, boxing is something that you can learn. His grappling is solid enough that it can give a lot of people problems, including Strickland if he gets a takedown. It would give a lot of people problems in this division. His striking needs to get better. I thought Whittaker was competitive. I did have De Ridder winning by split decision. And you'll remember, I talked about it last week. I said Whittaker was not a bet for me. I had over 2.5 as a bet. But there was no way I was betting Whittaker. And a lot of people were like, well, if you're going to do 2.5, why don't you just do Whittaker wins by decision? Again, I like the grappling upside of Reinier De Ridder. So, again, the grappling is going to be solid for him and something he can lean on, but the boxing has to get better. He's not going to go anywhere without better boxing. So you should take this like 6 months, and assuming he escaped without injury, go back into the lab, work on his boxing, and maybe he can actually make a run at the title. He's already ranked number 5. Like,
Yeah.
he went up 6 spots on that win. That's a huge win for him. And definitely he's had, again, fighter of the year contender. Let's see how his year ends.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
You know,
But you did mention great boxing, and if we are going to talk about a great boxer, let's talk about the guy in the co-main event, Mr. Petr Yan, and he defeats Marcus McGee. Petr Yan things, but he did lose that first round, like you had kind of not necessarily predicted, but maybe we're nervous about, Petr in terms of what he wants out of the fight and how he continues to lose first rounds. What do you make of him, kind of giving away the first round, maybe slow starting in his fights?
He's dropped a lot of first rounds in his career, and like you pointed out, I had said that I expect McGee to win the first round at a pretty high clip, and then afterwards you could live bet Petr Yan because we've seen him lose first rounds rather frequently. This gives me concern though, and it's going to continue to give me concern for me, especially in 3-round fights. Unless he fights the title next, which we will talk about, I would expect Yan to be fighting 3-round fights until he gets a next title shot. I don't think he's main eventing a card anytime soon. I mean, I guess he could. I mean, we have Tetsuro Taira main eventing a card right now, but
That's an Apex card. You can't put Petr Yan in the Apex.
You can't put
right?
Yan. That's exactly what I'm saying. You shouldn't put Yan in an Apex card. You just shouldn't. I mean, you could, but you shouldn't. Right. And so we've seen him now. He lost the first round to Sean O'Malley, lost the first round to Song Yadong, lost the first round to Aljamain Sterling. Okay. So, like, it's 3 out of 5 fights, 4 out of 5 fights, if you include the Merab one, which he lost. We got a lot of slow starts here for Petr Yan. And when you go from fighting 5 rounds to 3 rounds, it changes things. You have to start faster. You have to push the cardio way faster. It's like the same thing with like a Nate Diaz type, where it's like, Nate Diaz doesn't lose, he just runs out of time, right? Petr Yan, he's gonna be running out of time here, especially as he gets a little bit older. He's got to adjust to 3-round fights a little bit better, because I don't expect him to get a title shot next. He just fought the number 10 ranked bantamweight this past fight. For him to go from 10 all the way up seems like a pretty big jump, at least in the eyes of the UFC matchmakers.
Well, I have to push back a little bit. I feel like
Okay.
in this scenario, they needed some sort of fight for this card out in Abu Dhabi, and fighting down in the rankings, I think there is something to be said for that. Like, not a lot of fighters in a position like Petr would have done that, and I don't think that Marcus McGee was like the name that he was, hoping to be fighting that night. So I think it could potentially earn him some favors potentially.
I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
Who's closer to a title shot, Petr Yan or Mario Bautista?
I think that they're neck and neck, honestly. I think that they're
Mhm.
neck and neck. I think they're both one fight away, potentially. Well, here, let me phrase this for you. If we're talking about the title picture, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned Merab and Piotr's fight with Merab. Assuming that Merab does beat Corey, because I think if Corey does take that 135 belt, that throws a wrench into things in terms of next
100%.
title contenders, right? Do you think that Piotr's done enough to get back at Merab if he is still holding the title at that point?
So no, I don't. I'm all good on seeing that fight for at least right now. I need him to really show, like, I want him to dominate somebody. Like, he dominated Davis and Figueiredo, but again, Figueiredo, he's coming up from 125. Like, I'm not a huge fan. Like, Mario Bautista is a bigger bantamweight. He's bigger, and that would have to be a 5-round fight. So, like, he should be ready to, like, and I don't know what the line would be, but if Bautista was a dog, I'd bet him. And if he's a favorite, I think that's fair. So
Wow.
yeah, I loved what I saw out of Bautista at Newark, and
Mm-hmm.
Petr Yan again starts slow. Anyway, I'll always get the opportunity to live bet him at an underdog price in the second round if I want to, because he always drops the first round. I mean, it's really crazy. It's one of the wildest trends that you'll see. It was like 4 out of 5 fights, and I think the only one that he won the first round was against Davis and Figueiredo, which is wild. So when you look at it, Merab Dvalishvili, if he beats Corey Sandhagen, I'd probably consider doing the Umar fight again, or maybe have Umar and Mario Bautista fight for the number 1 contender spot, or Bautista versus Petr Yan. I think that that's kind of where I'm looking at it for Yan. I don't think that we need to see Merab grapple Petr Yan for another. I mean, he got 11 takedowns in that fight.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably one of the more impressive performances that we've seen from anyone in quite some time. But so you were just playing matchmaker a little bit. Let's get some definitive answers. Let's play matchmaker coming off the heels of this UFC Abu Dhabi card. Let's start with the main event winner, Reinier De Ridder. I'm gonna go first on this one. You mentioned this person. I think if you don't give RDR a title shot, which I think is you could do it, right?
Yeah.
Let's see how that fight with Kaio and Nassourdine goes, right? But if you don't give RDR the shot, Israel Adesanya. I think that that's a solid
Oh,
fight.
really?
Yeah, I think that's a solid fight. And in terms of the stylistic matchup might not be great on paper, but I could see that fight playing out well. What do you think?
Uh, I don't think I'd really want to see Israel fight another grappler. I really want Israel to fight another striker. Um, I don't want to watch Israel try to defend takedowns for I know he's gonna be defending takedowns. So that's just me though. I like the shout out.
Okay.
I would say I would have liked him to fight Imavov if the Bojado matchup wasn't made.
Yeah.
Right? I would honestly like to see I would do like the Ritter versus Strickland, but again, Strickland's suspended
Yeah.
by the athletic commission. So who knows when he's fighting? He might not fight for a
That
while.
was the reason why I was like, Izzy might be the only option. Like,
He might be. I guess so. What I put for it was I had Imavov. If he beats Borhalo and let's say Hamzat beats Dricus, you do the Dricus Hamzat rematch, and then you do, and who knows how the fight's going to play out. I'm projecting a lot right now, but
yeah.
you do the Dricus Hamzat rematch, and then you do RDR versus Imavov if Imavov wins, or the winner of that fight, whoever wins. Since Strickland's not available because he's an idiot.
We'll see what happens there. Fair enough. But so yeah, we were just talking about Petr Yan. I heard you throwing out a lot of options. What if you have to pick one? What is next for Petr Yan?
If I had to pick, so for Jan, it's a little bit tougher because it's you have to see what happens in this Corey fight as well. If Bautista or Umar Nurmagomedov are available, I think either of those two. I'm assuming that Bautista and Nurmagomedov are going to fight. That's my guess.
Oh, the
But if
two of them will fight.
that's my guess. That's been my assumption.
Okay.
But if that doesn't happen, one of those two is the fight.
Yeah, so my preference goes to Umar. I think Jan and Umar, they seem like the strongest cases right now. Like they both really seem one away. I think Bautista's just a tiny bit lower on that, mainly because people kind of hate him. He got a little bit of favor with the fans after beating Patchy Mix. You know, Patchy was talking a lot of smack, and Bautista, kind of shut up the fans that were booing him in that arena by beating Patchy.
Yeah. When I interviewed Mario, I was even talking to him about like what's it feel like, fans hated you after the last fight, but you just set, you had the most significant strikes of any fighter on the card that card.
Wow.
And that was a 3-round fight. And there was 2 5-round fights on that card. Obviously they both ended with a finish, but he was like, "No, I don't care. I don't care about the fans."
Yeah.
He's like, he's like, "I like it when people hate me." I was like, "All right."
Fair enough. If it works, it works. But yeah, as my other shout, I was saying you could potentially do the Jan O'Malley rematch. But the only problem that I have with that is if O'Malley wins, it's just like, dude, like what happens then? Like
doesn't do a whole lot for O'Malley.
Exactly. But the other side of that coin in terms of like permutations is if Corey beats Marab and Sean beats Jan, then we have a fight again. Sean, like the UFC brass is licking their chops. They're like, oh my gosh, Sean O'Malley title shot again,
Right.
So.
Yeah, and just a random one I'll throw in, I'll go O'Malley versus Sangidam. That should be the fight.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout at all. I think they could definitely realistically make that fight. Alrighty, let's move on to the one-eyed pirate, should I say, Shara Bullet. He was also, of course, on the card, came away with the win, bouncing back. So what do you think is next for Shara Bullet? What do you like? I have an answer, and I think it is the correct answer. Like, I think that I was looking through the middleweight rankings, and I was like, I don't know. And then it came to me, but I want to get yours first.
I got 2. One is definitely outside the box. I think the correct answer is probably Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori's solid striker, not really going to do too many takedowns, but he'll also push the pace, let Shara Bullet kind of counter strike a little bit. I think that's what you want. You want like to see how these matchups play out, and like is Vettori able to push the pace on him and tire him out a little bit. The second one is a little out there. What about Israel Adesanya fighting Shara Bullet? I understand that the rankings make no sense. Israel is rated number 4. Shara Bullet's unrated. Couple things. 2 strikers. Israel Adesanya needs a win, right?
Yeah,
needs a win.
he would like one, I'm sure.
Well, from the UFC's perspective, I mean, from everyone's perspective, it's a huge opportunity for both. Honestly, Israel would be a big favorite, but Shara Bullet's got good striking, and Israel, like, we have questions about where his chin is at. So I think it would definitely be tested against Shara Bullet, no doubt.
Sure, yeah, and to your point, Israel definitely does need a win. If he does, fight again and he loses, like there's no reason for him to stick around anymore. Like I'm sure he's plenty happy with where he is at in life, financially and what have you. So if he does come away with a loss in his next fight, I think that's wraps for Izzy. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one for me.
Yeah,
And
I'm interested. What if it wasn't Vittori? Who is it?
okay, Kevin Holland. What do you think about that
Oh,
one?
takedowns. He's gonna take
Yeah,
him
I
down.
know. Kevin's got good ground game. But the thing is, I feel like Kevin, he doesn't give a crap. Like
Also, you want him to go back to middleweight? I feel like he's committed to welterweight at this point.
yeah, he's doing pretty well over there. But if the price is right, the thing is,
Right.
Kevin can fight in like 2 months and then come away with a loss. And he's like, well, that's welterweight done. Now let's go to middleweight. And the thing is, I feel like if the brass is just like, hey, dude, like this is going to be like a striking matchup, he'd be like, yep, cool. No problem. Or if the fans are
Well, we've
saying
seen him
that's
do
what they
that
want to
against.
see.
We've seen him do that against Wonderboy unsuccessfully.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I feel like that would be an interesting one. Two people that fans kind of know. I feel like Shara is becoming more and more of like a known fighter to maybe the more casual fans, just because look at the guy, and he's got the striking to back it up. He's flashy,
You also need
crazy
somebody that's willing
knockouts.
to fight in the Middle East because Charbel will never get sanctioned by
Oh,
commissions here.
yeah.
So
He
it has to be
exclusively
someone that's
fights out there.
fought or is willing to fight in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
And we know Israel is down for that.
that is true. That is true. Alrighty,
So
fair
his
enough.
his pool of opponents is a little bit smaller than most.
So I think that wraps up our matchmaking for this past card. But let's carry on with the matchmaking. It's fun, right? So one thing that I wanted to kind of lead into this conversation is I saw a bite from Dan Hooker talking to Submission Radio. In terms, obviously he's in the lightweight division, and he was kind of breaking this down. He said that some of the congestion that's going on at the lightweight division is intentional from the UFC as a negotiation tactic. Basically saying if there's a clear number one that fans are expecting to see walk into a title shot, that leaves the UFC in a less than advantageous position when it comes to bargaining power, right? So, you've got guys like Arman, Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett that he riffed off that like all theoretically could get title shots. I mean, we were just talking about the kerfuffle at middleweight, so it seems like there is some sort of merit to sort of his postulation, you could say. So let's figure this one out in terms of the lightweight situation. What do you think about that, Eric?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, who we starting with?
Let's start with Dan Hooker, considering he's the guy that we're talking about. Who do you like for Dan Hooker as his next opponent?
Seems pretty clear. I mean, he should fight Justin Gaethje. I love that fight for him, and I like that fight for Gaethje too. It's fresh, it's new. We need some new, fresh matchups. No more trying to stay away from the matchup, like the rematches. Too many rematches. So for me, yeah, I'll go. Justin Gaethje should be who he fought. Throw out another name. I'd also be calling out Paddy Pimblett if I were him. It's a big fight.
Yeah,
It's a main event fight,
and I think that Paddy would take that.
and I think Paddy would take it. Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think that is a perfect matchup for them. So yeah, Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett.
I like that.
One of those two.
Or Hooker versus Paddy Pimblett, rather.
Yeah, sorry.
Honestly, so for me, I have Justin versus Dan Hooker listed down. I wholeheartedly agree with you there. The one problem is I don't think Justin is going to take that fight. Like he's
Well,
doing.
we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Yeah. We're gonna get there, but he's been saying he wants his title shot and he'll walk away from the sport if he doesn't get that title shot. I'm agreeing with Dana White. It's like, okay, walk away. Like I can't do it. Watching Justin get slept by Max and then watching Max get slept by Ilya, it's like, I know MMA math doesn't add up, but like, come on, man. We don't want to do that to Justin,
We don't want to do that to Justin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the next guy up for the title shot, seemingly, in terms of we're going off of merit, Arman Tsarukyan. What do you like for him? Do you think he gets that title shot? Do you think he needs one more? And if so, who would that be?
if I was representing Arman Sarzukian, I would probably wait to see what Max and if Max and Topuria is made. I would keep waiting until that's either made, and then also I would still consider waiting if that fight happens before the end of the year. I would still consider waiting and
Fair.
see if you can fight beginning of the year the winner of that matchup. However, if I was representing him, I would also probably be looking to fight Justin Gaethje because Gaethje can't really grapple. Well, can grapple, chooses not to. He was
Yeah.
smashed by Khabib. I know Khabib and Arman aren't on the same level probably, but it's
Right.
close enough. Um, that's kind of where I'm at.
Hmm.
It would either be continue to wait. You already did the weigh-in thing, which is kind of like fighting, right? I think you paid your show money. It's kind of like that, right? It's
It
something like
it
that.
does some sort of favor for you, that's for
It does
sure.
something. I don't know.
Dana
It doesn't
seemed
do
to say
nothing.
that it was like not earning a title shot the same way that Colby Covington did, when he
Yeah.
did that. But
Yes. Good shout out. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that's why so many guys are doing. We'll have some quick hits in terms of like weighing in and stuff like that. For me, I think Arman has to fight next for the title. And when he talked with Scott, our good friend, he was like, dude, if they try to give me another fight before I'm fighting for the belt, like I'm gonna be pissed. Which completely understandable. And
They don't care if he's pissed.
no, no, they don't. The UFC does
That's
not
the
care.
thing.
They
They don't
they
care.
they don't. But let's talk about Paddy Pimblett because you referenced him. What do you think? We mentioned him a few times, dude. I think that you could potentially do if you're doing Justin versus Dan Hooker, and if Arman gets the title shot that really he deserves versus Ilya, that leaves Max and Paddy left. What do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, so that's what I was either Gaethje Pimblett or Max Pimblett or Hooker. I think any of the whichever of the three are left is pretty much what it is. If you do Gaethje Hooker, then you could do Paddy Max. But if you do Hooker Max or if you do Hooker Pimblett, like it's one of those four should fight each other basically. Dan Hooker, Gaethje, Max, Pimblett. Pick from those four, make any matchup you want. I think you're good. I think you're good there.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is Arman should get that title shot.
Arman should continue waiting.
Yeah.
I would wait. I would
Fair
wait
enough.
unless they book the matchup and there's and it's like if they book the matchup for like April or like May or March of next year or February of next year or something. If Topuria is not fighting for the rest of the year, then okay. Then I'll fight Gaethje. You'll probably be a big favorite in that fight, and then you figure it out.
I love how literally everyone wants to fight Gaethje. Like, and I can kind of understand why. Like, I think
They
I
smell
said
blood
this.
in the water, but everyone wants to fight him until you're Rafael Fiziev.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Rafael Fiziev was begging for that fight, and he's got his brains beat in twice,
Great
and his
fights.
leg kicked in.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
fights, fantastic fights.
But yeah, we'll see what happens there. Let us know in the comments for those at home what fights you want to see for these guys at lightweight, as well as for the guys who came away with a win on Saturday night. But this weekend, we've got PFL Atlantic City, the finals for welterweight and featherweight. For welterweight, we've got Thad Jean versus Logan Storley, and for featherweight, we've got Jesus Pinedo taking on Movlid Khabulaev. And Eric, you talked to Thad Jean, who will be headlining the card this weekend. Could you tell me a little bit about how that went?
Thad Jean is feeling it right now. Thad Jean, imagine going from your first amateur fight or your first professional fight to a championship prize fight worth 500 grand in 4 years. That's crazy. That's wild. So 26, he's young, 10-0, and he's feeling like, maybe rightfully so, that he's on a run right now and that he's going to be the next guy in the PFL. Here's what Thad had to say. He's an interesting character, good personality.
I will have that championship. I will have that money in the account. I will be the superstar or the next superstar after, again, Dakota Differential, Eric Hughes, all these guys, Francis Ngannou, who's also the biggest one, I would say. I will be the one that came out of Florida, not America.
Mm-hmm.
Came out of America, Haiti. I will be that guy.
So, Eric, you heard it from him talking about being, the next star. Do you think that he could be PFL's next homegrown star, like Dakota Tacheva?
He could be for sure. I mean, I was kind of surprised. He's a minus 220 betting favorite in this fight,
Okay.
against a high school state champion wrestler, against a college wrestler at the University of Minnesota. Logan Storley is a very good wrestler. Thad Gene is fought 10 times. I mean, he just beat Justin Jackson, but
Jason,
how
yeah,
many
Jason.
minutes? Jason Jackson, sorry. He just beat Jason Jackson, split decision, probably lost a bunch of minutes there, but the power is so strong that it doesn't really matter. Big size difference. He's 6'2". Logan Storley's 5'9". That's a mass, and he already made weight. As of this recording, Thad Gene made weight, and he
There
looked
we
good
go.
doing it too. So 6'2", 170, kind of a weight bully, right? Definitely a big guy. So I'm interested to see how this goes. Now, I asked him about Logan Storley and Jason Jackson are teammates, and I asked him basically like, is Logan? Do you expect Logan to have the full book report on you, and in terms of game plan, what Jackson is going to give him? Like they fought 2 months ago, and now they're fighting again in August, and he basically said like, I don't think they're even that tight. He's like, I don't think that they're friendly. I don't think that gym is close knit. He's like, maybe he'll have something, but he's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, if you try to take me down, that's fine, but I'm gonna knock you out basically. So
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see if he wins this fight. I would be, and he's a favorite to do so, which I thought was wild.
Yeah.
That would be something.
It would
He would be
be.
a big time star.
I mean, and the PFL seems like they really quite need one because I mean, all the ones that they got from Bellator that were homegrown, most of them have gone off to the UFC. But in terms of rounding out this fight, do you kind of see it as like a classic striker versus grappler matchup? Or is that really where Thad Gene specializes in his striking? Logan, you were mentioning, of course, his wrestling accolades. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, it's gonna be a striker grappler matchup. I'm interested to see, can Logan really even take one hard shot? He's 5'9". He's way smaller. Like he is 5 inches shorter. That's
Well,
crazy.
I mean, listen,
5 inches shorter in the same weight class is like you don't see that very often.
no.
Unless it's like a 6'8" fighter versus a 6'1" fighter in the heavyweight division. This is very rare. So to see this at welterweight, he's just gonna be way bigger. And he's also a really good athlete. He was really a pretty big time high school running back at I believe it was Parkland High School in Florida. And I did a little write up on him. Definitely go check out the interview. Definitely go check out the article. But that Gene's got a really interesting story. He's got a good personality. I think that the PFL should have something here. Why he was even an alternate for this is another story. It makes no sense.
Well, I think
But
once he got on that microphone after his first tournament win, the PFL were
yeah,
like, okay, thank God. Thank God
yeah,
it played out like this.
would have been a big mistake if not.
Exactly. But as I mentioned, we also have that featherweight title fight. So with that, let's take a look at the event rating, and it is a 2. And while like we were talking about, we're excited for the main event. Scott's excited for the co-main event. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But those are pretty much the only 2 high-level fights on that card. And per Scott's note, when he was giving us the event rating, he said pretty much outside that it's regional MMA. After that, there's only 7 other fighters in the top 200 of their division per fight matrix on this entire card. So yeah, it's pretty top heavy, you could say.
It's top heavy. I'm interested. I don't even know where Thad Gene ranks in terms of like overall rankings, but I'm interested to know because like Thad Gene has been fighting for such a short amount of time. He was fighting amateur before the 10-0, and he lost a couple fights in amateur. Like, where is he ranked in the world rankings?
You know what? I think after taking out Jason Jackson, and I know it was a really close fight, he's got to be up there. Like, I mean, Jason Jackson, you would imagine he was up there, former Bellator champion. So
I tweeted when Gene fought Jackson, I was like, Jackson might be the only fighter to lose the first minute of the first 2 rounds and win every minute going forward. He lost the first minute of the first round and the second minute of the second round. Third round was pretty close, but you could make the argument that Gene lost maybe 11 minutes of that fight and won the fight by a split decision. Like, you don't see that often either.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think that wraps up PFL. Let's talk about UFC, and very excited for those PFL fights in the championships slots. But this weekend we got Tatsuro Taira taking on Park Hyun Sung. Amir Albazi was supposed to be taking on Tatsuro Taira, but had to pull out after being not medically cleared. So Hyun Sung steps in. Back in the warehouse, Eric. And why don't you break down the main event, and then we could talk about the co-main event afterwards. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just for betting odds purposes, Tyra's minus 370 favorite, Hyung Sung Park, you know, he's taking this fight on short notice technically, but it's not really because he was supposed to fight Steve Erceg, I believe it was next week or the week after. So it's not really fighting on short notice. I think the UFC kind of did a good job here of, getting a fighter here not totally off of the couch. Park should be in a good spot here to jump in. You might know Tyra is number 6 ranked in the division. Lost split decision to Brandon Royval, 6 takedowns in that fight, solid wrestling, but got caught a few times in the striking. Royval's submission threats are definitely, were top notch in that fight, and Tyra showed that he was a little bit, vulnerable to submissions. So something to monitor for Park. If you haven't watched that fight, definitely go watch it. Park 10-0, 5-0 in the UFC. 2 of those wins coming in the road to the UFC. Program that I never watched. But
it's not really for us, but
yeah, it's not really for us, right? But Park, no stranger to fighting on short notice. I believe the fight that they took before that against Carlos Hernandez was on short notice. He won that fight, obviously. But strong striker, grappling could be suspect. So Tyra obviously minus 370 favorite because they are projecting grappling success. If Park is able to get some takedowns, or Park's able to avoid some takedowns, maybe he's a good live bet spot. But I'm not going to be betting this fight. It's it's a tough one.
that is a tough one. Yeah, especially like it's a fresh fight. Like you haven't had time to sit on it like you might have with the initial matchup, right?
I was more excited for the initial matchup. I'm sure
Yeah,
I'm not the only.
definitely. Yeah. And but so we've also got the co-main event, Mateus Rebecki taking on Chris Duncan. I'm pretty sure I've heard you talk about Rebecki in some of your bets before.
Yep.
But tell me about this co-main event.
Yeah, Chris Duncan has back-to-back wins by guillotine, which is good. But is that a curse? It's a blessing, but is that a curse?
I would say that's a
Guillotines.
blessing to have two submission wins in a row.
So the only reason that I would maybe push back against that a little bit is, Duncan, if you get guillotine chokes are the worst choke to get or to go for. Because
Yeah,
immediately you
Dustin
don't get it.
Poirier would disagree with that.
It's never worked for him.
I know. I have the shirt. I have
His
the shirt that
coaches would
says "Don't be silly, jump the gilly."
I know, I hear you, but his coaches would totally agree with me on this.
Yeah.
Like it's not any fighter that's looking to jump guillotine, I'm all set. Like, Rebecca's a solid grappler. Could crack the top 10 here with a win. Multiple takedowns in each of his last 3 fights. Solid control and never been submitted. So Chris Duncan, while he will probably win striking exchanges, I'm a little concerned about his guillotine attempts. I think that he might be willing to settle for those instead of try to fight out of positions, and Rebecca would, gain top control and wear him down and maybe get a decision win, maybe get a late submission, who knows. But again, Rebecca never been submitted, which is impressive for a grappler.
Yeah, very much so. So we'll see how that one plays out. In terms of fights to watch, Scott's is on the PFL, the one that we mentioned, the co-main event. Jesus Pinedo taking on Khabulaev for the featherweight championship. So that'll be a fun one. And Eric, what is your fight to watch for these 2 cards?
Battle of Strikers, Elvis Brenner versus Esteban Ribovics. Very good fight. Ribovics jumped onto the scene last year. And Brenner, he's lost 2 straight, but super entertaining fighter. So that's a definite, that one should be a banger. If it's not, we're in for a long night because that one should be a banger.
Alrighty, fair enough. Excited for that one now. And let's get to the event rating. The UFC event rating is a 15, which, I mean, for an Apex card, we expect them to be low, but that's pretty low. Now, Scott noted it would have been a 23 before Amir Albazi fell out, but it does help the rating that 4 of the top 50 flyweights are in there, topped by Tatsuro Taira. And as far as the women's fights with top 25 talent, there's 2 of those. And in terms of women's bantamweight, a top 15 matchup. So pretty solid in terms of that regard. So if it had been as it should have been, it would have been a 23. But Eric, to round out this card, why don't you give us, or this weekend rather, because we've got PFL and UFC, why don't you give us your 3 bets in 3 minutes?
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, let's talk about UFC Vegas 81. As we talked about, it's not the best card. I'm not going to bet the PFL card. I don't feel really great about betting for or against Thad Jean based on me interviewing him. So I'm just going to stick to the UFC this weekend. Going to totally bypass the main event, and we're going to get right started here and go into the main event. And we're going to talk about Matus Rebecki versus Chris Duncan. Matus Rebecki, grappler first for sure. He's always going for a takedown. He's going to push the pace on you. While Chris Duncan, very good footwork, bigger, physically imposing, got big legs, got thick hips, thick legs. I like his wrestling hips, honestly. I think that he could, be able to stuff some takedowns here from Rebecki. Now, where I think this gets a little bit dicey is if Duncan, who has won his last 2 fights by guillotine submission, if he falls in love with that a little bit. We know we talked about don't be a silly, jump a gilly, right? I don't like that strategy. I don't think his coaches would like that strategy either. So, for me, I'm looking at, this fight to go to decision. Comes in at plus 160 on Fanatics. Rebecki's never been submitted. And for a wrestler, that's pretty impressive because you're always in, grappling positions. So he's never been submitted. I expect Rebecki that will be able to push the pace. Now, Duncan could win on damage, and there is some value there. I think he's a talented fighter. So, I don't hate a Duncan live shot if he's able to stuff some takedowns. I definitely don't hate that, but I'm going to take fight to go the distance plus 160 over on Fanatics. And then we're going to continue in the main card, and we're going to go, some elder statesmen here, some familiar faces. Neil Magny fighting Zaleski dos Santos. And, both of them are in the same part of their careers, right? They're mostly gatekeepers. We're never really close to a title shot, but in this situation, they're both 37. They're both 3-4 in their last 4 fights. Now, Magny comes in here as an underdog, and he's taken a lot of damage recently, right? He's been knocked down the first round against Michael Morales, knocked out against Carlos Prates. That's a problem, right? Now, Dos Santos, kind of the same stuff. He got knocked out by Chidi and Joe Kwani, who's, I would argue, not at the same level as any of those guys that Magny fought. And Randy Brown he lost to. Renat Fakhradanov, another one. That was a little bit of a closer fight, but it's tough for me to really dive and say that Zaleski dos Santos has more left in the tank than Magny. I don't think either of them have a lot left in the tank. So for me, I'm going to go fight to go to decision as well. So same bet, but different fight. Minus 150 on fight to go to decision for Magny versus dos Santos. And I don't hate a lot. I don't hate a shot on Magny by decision in the plus 280 range. I was hoping to get to plus 300, but it never hasn't gotten there at the time of me doing this. So and then finally, we'll get to the prelims. Kevin Vallejos versus Danny Silva. Vallejos minus 475 favorite here, huge favorite. Danny Silva not a good striker. Vallejos a very good striker. So contrasting styles there. Danny Silva's more of a wrestler. He's definitely looking for control. He's been a decision in all 3 of his UFC fights. While Vallejos had a very good knockout of Sang-Woo Choi, Cam Teague in his Contender Series debut. I don't think Vallejos should be a minus 475 favorite here, to be clear. But I do think that this fight ends by knockout, and I think if Silva's able to get a takedown, I don't like Vallejos' takedown defense as much from the few that I've seen in his Dana White Contender Series spot. So, for me, I'm going to end by KO/TKO, just in case Danny Silva's able to land some ground and pound and get a finish as well. So, give me that plus 115 over on Fanatics. Those were 3 bets in 3-ish minutes.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that, Eric. And I'm going to start off with quick hits, if you don't mind. First off, I alluded to it earlier. You kind of predicted that Yuri Prohaska being on that Ankalaev Pereira card could lead to him being a backup fighter. And according to him and his team, he did confirm that he would be the backup fighter for Ankalaev and Pereira. He initially made that claim on the Ariel Helwani show, and his team confirmed that to MMA Fighting. Talking about another backup fighter, Caio Bahayo says that he is the backup fighter for Dricus du Plessis versus Hamzat Chimaev at UFC 319. Why don't you take it away for the rest of the quick hits, Eric?
Absolutely. And Conor McGregor always in the news. Conor McGregor loses his rape appeal in the civil case over in Ireland, so he was found civilly liable after the appeal, went he was found guilty. He'll pay $285,000 as well as legal fees in the case. So not great stuff over in Ireland. Jorge Masvidal has warned Justin Gaethje to avoid Ilia Topuria, saying that he should not look to fight somebody at the top of their game like that. Interesting from Masvidal. We don't hear from him very much these days, but I think that was an interesting one. And then back to the BJ Penn saga. You might remember there was some
very worrying stuff coming out of him and his family.
Yeah, just worrying things. I mean, there was the restraining order placed by his family, and he was kicked out of his house. He's now asking the UFC and Dana White for help amid his legal troubles. He was, previously, I believe, was running for governor of Hawaii. Some sort of, he's had a lot of legal problems over the past few years.
This is not new to UFC.
Not new stuff here from BJ Penn. So that's it on the BJ Penn front. We'll go over to the final round and talk about last week's homework.
Yeah, so Kung Lee, first off, this is my first Strikeforce fight that I believe I've ever watched. Definitely in terms of start to finish. I am curious as to why Scott wanted us to watch someone being murdered in the octagon.
It was not a good showing from Scott Smith.
Yeah.
He didn't really do much.
Yeah, there was a lot of damage being taken from him to the body, and just Jason Herzog was like, dude, please.
Young Herzog.
Yeah, young Herzog. He's like, please, dude, like, do anything. Like, you need to just move. Like, he was in that first round, he was really just kind of, he was laying and praying, hoping that he would just make it to the end of the bell. And, that second round didn't go great for him. But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, same stuff. Like, this is for Strikeforce, this is around the time where Nick Diaz was kind of carrying them a little bit. They're on Strikeforce. There's interesting Paul Daly fight that we might get to one day, but basically around this time in Strikeforce, this is where this is honestly I was impressed with how the production quality transfers over. I thought the production quality was very good by Strikeforce, better than PFL even. So I'm interested to know why. Like, the UFC didn't buy them for several years afterwards. So it almost feels like the UFC kind of took some stuff from Strikeforce in their production. But I digress. Scott Smith was a plus 255 underdog in this fight, and he looked like a plus 10,000 underdog in this fight. I could not tell if he was going to even try to throw strikes. So that wasn't great. But yeah, interesting Strikeforce fight, but not his best work.
Fair enough. Well, let's move on to the next homework assignment. And we've got Ronda Rousey taking on Miesha Tate. This is the second fight that they had, and this was at UFC 168. And I believe Ronda Rousey is also included our This Week in MMA. Eric, why don't you take it away for that one?
So yeah, This Week in MMA, Ronda Rousey KOs Betch Correia, final victory of her MMA career. Yeah, I mean, Ronda Rousey was a big favorite in this fight, and I believe that it carried over for years to come. I believe that was only beaten recently. I believe so. That's your This Week in MMA, August 1st, 2015.
There we go. And eighth consecutive victory in a championship fight. So coming up on a decade tomorrow from when that occurred. That is the final round wrapped up. Leave comments in the section below of what you thought of our previous homework assignment, Kung Lee versus Scott Smith. And Eric, thank you so much for joining me as always. And for you at home, we will see you next week.
Make some money again.